Need your fix of the beautiful game? Then head to the BBC Sport website and app. With goal alerts, score predictions and top punditry. Go online or download the app now.
This is BBC World News America. I'm Maryam Moshiri. At the World Cup in Qatar, the United States hold England to a goalless draw. Kherson under attack. Now hospital patients are being evacuated from the Ukrainian city because of constant Russian shelling. A 90-year-old Roman Catholic cardinal in Hong Kong is found guilty of failing to register a fund to help people arrested in anti-government protests. And the world's longest-running theatre production, Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap, celebrates an incredible 70 years in London's West End. For all of you watching on PBS and around the globe, a very warm welcome to World News America. Well, England and the United States have played their much-awaited World Cup match in Qatar. The result was a draw, a tie in American parlance, with neither side scoring a goal. England will be most satisfied with the result. Prior victory over Iran means almost certain qualification for the knockout stages, but the Americans were pretty impressive in this game and could still make it through. In the first half, the USA's Christian Pulisic came closest to scoring with a shot that hit the crossbar. Well, just before half-time, England had their chance, with Mason Mount having his shot saved by the American goalkeeper. The second half wasn't too different, though, with both sides trying their best to score that crucial goal to go one ahead. Well, the closest chance came from England's Harry Kane during extra time. His header missed the target. Well, the BBC's Nesta McGregor is in Doha and watched the match for us.
After such an impressive opening game, this looked like a different England squad, and I think that will be quite concerning because Gareth Southgate and the team would have known that a win tonight would have all but guaranteed their place in the last 16. I think the USA surprised a few people, and what this does do, it sets up a tasty game against Wales in Group B, where technically all four teams could still qualify. Listen, Wales were disappointing today, but you imagine Gareth Bale. He looked a passenger, but what redemption would it be to upset England and dump them out of a World Cup in what could be one of his final games in a Wales shirt? So listen, England will know that they need a performance, especially going into the knockout stages. They look lackluster, you know, they look like they needed inspiration, which, as I mentioned, was so different from the first game that they might go away reflecting this. And don't be surprised if we do see some changes from that starting 11 in the next game against Wales on Tuesday. We've seen some shocks in the World Cup so far, but if Wales were to beat England 4-0 and then the USA were to beat Iran and those two teams went through, I think it would be the biggest shock in World Cup history. I think what it sets up nicely is that we're here in Doha, and certainly the English and the Welsh fans have been the most vocal, and you can imagine the atmosphere, you know, in a British clash or a United Kingdom clash, should I say, between those two sets of fans on the way to the game, all the banter that we're used to seeing in domestic football, which we might be missing from some of the stadiums here. It's going to be a crescendo of noise, and I think, yeah, the players will have no choice but to respond to an atmosphere like that. So Wales, can they win 4-0? Never say no, but if I was a betting man, my money would be staying in my pocket.
And of course, we don't advocate gambling here on the BBC. So what did supporters make of that result? Well, our correspondent Dan Johnson watched the game with some English fans. Here's his report.
At the club where England's Jude Bellingham first played football, the next generation were in training and in high hopes.
I reckon Saka, Kane, Bellingham and Grealish will score.
You think Jude Bellingham's going to score tonight?
Yeah.
gonna smash them!
Confidence.
Yes.
2-1 to us.
2-1 or 3-1.
I think
But we're gonna
4-0.
smash them.
And what is it they say? But it wasn't. Not yet, anyway. The game started flat and barely lifted. But there was tension,
I think we looked nervous for some reason, not sure why.
heartache,
Uninspiring, to say the least.
frustration,
Tonight, I thought we were really boring.
and disbelief.
We can't seem to get any space. Look at this now. I mean, it's... I mean, we're...
And at full time, there was only one happy man in the house. Jackson, a student from South Carolina.
We were quite decent tonight, but overall, for the US, it went the game plan, and then we executed what we wanted to have. A point is a huge result.
I don't think we look exciting at the moment, which could be down to selection, it could be down to just general motivation, but I think the potential's definitely there. It's just whether or not they decide to use it.
Very disappointed.
What does it need?
More beer.
Just to make it. Next up, Wales, now with added spice. Dan Johnson, BBC News, Stourbridge.
Let's turn to Ukraine and the regional governor of Kherson, which has recently come back under Ukrainian control, says that due to relentless Russian bombing, the city's hospital is being evacuated. 7 people have been killed in recent strikes. After their withdrawal from Kherson, Russian forces appear to be concentrating their efforts towards the east of the country. In particular, they're trying to capture more territory near the city of Donetsk, which pro-Russian forces have controlled since 2014 and which Russia now claims has joined its federation. It's meant heavy damage to the Ukrainian-held town of Avdiivka, now effectively on the front line of the military battle. Well, our correspondent Abdu Jalil Abdurasalov has been there and sent this report.
This is what the front line looks like. Months of intensive fighting turned Avdiivka into a ghost town. Those people who are still staying in the town are too afraid to go out because of constant shelling. And it's really quiet here. The only sound we can hear is the sound of artillery fire, both outgoing and incoming. People come out from their shelters when humanitarian aid is delivered. To go to a shop or to take garbage out is an act of bravery now, this man tells me. You never know whether you would come back, he says. There are about 2,000 people remaining in Avdiivka. They try to survive without gas, electricity, heating and running water. 14 people stay in this basement. They got Christmas decorations to light the shelter and use an old stove for heating. Our main invention is a bucket, which we use as a toilet, Anatoly tells me. Local authorities, however, call people to leave the town. They warn that many will not survive the coming winter.
We will not be able to provide food. We will not be able to evacuate people, even if someone decides to leave, because the roads will be blocked by snow. This winter, we won't be able to do that at all. We tell people, do you understand that even if you don't starve to death, you may simply freeze to death?
Elena may follow his advice and get evacuated. She's making a pea soup outside of her apartment block. The building is severely damaged and cannot be used as a shelter in freezing weather.
Maybe I will leave. If they shell this place again, they can blow up the whole building. All those flats that are below mine are destroyed. The floor in my apartment still holds up, though.
As Elena waits for her soup to be cooked, an artillery shell flies over and lands a few hundred meters from us. We have to go inside to take cover. The sounds of explosion and gunfire remind everyone that the winter here is going to be deadly. Abdul Abdurasulov, BBC News, Avdiivka.
Well, as Russia's war in Ukraine heads into a harsh winter, President Zelensky has repeatedly called for the world's help in his nightly address. Well, now the First Lady, Olena Zelenska, is taking on a more public role. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, has been speaking to Mrs. Zelenska and began by asking how Ukrainians will cope with the added pressure of those power blackouts.
President and First Lady. War ripped their lives apart, but brought their work closer together. As this war grinds on, lives lost, cold winter closing in with blackouts provoked by Russian strikes, Olena Zelenska is speaking out for Ukraine.
We've had so many challenges during these months, such trying challenges, so many victims, so much destruction, that if I'm honest with you, blackout is not the worst thing that can happen to us. Recently, an opinion poll was published. Ukrainians were asked how much longer can they endure in these conditions. The majority of Ukrainians, over 90%, said that they're prepared to endure this for 2 to 3 more years if they can see the prospect of our membership in the EU.
2 to 3 more years.
At times it is extremely hard, but then we find new emotions which help us to keep going.
So you work here and he works there. They both work in this heavily guarded compound in Kyiv, but he now has to live where he works, separate from her and their 2 children. When he first ran for president in 2019, she told him it was a life she didn't want. He won by a landslide with her support. High school sweethearts filmed this on Valentine's Day, just 10 days before Russia invaded and everything changed. He can't travel, so she does. Brussels, the EU Parliament, a standing ovation for a woman who once said public speaking scared her. Washington, the US Congress, the first foreign First Lady to address this House, even more, to ask for weapons.
You crossed the line into politics.
That was not politics. That was something I had to say. I was asking for weapons, not for an attack. I was asking for weapons to rescue us, so that our children would not be killed in their homes.
Now she calls other First Ladies her colleagues. The US's Dr. Jill Biden came to see her, both focused on education, children, families torn apart. Ukraine's mourners in chief, public faces of its pain and prayer.
For all Ukrainians, peace equates to victory, because we all understand that without victory, there will not be peace in our country.
For now, they know peace isn't in sight, just a long, cold winter of little light. Lise Doucette, BBC News, Kyiv.
Well, the full interview with Ukraine's First Lady, Olena Zelenska, and the BBC's chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, will be running on BBC World News this weekend. Let's take a look at some other news now. President Vladimir Putin has urged families of Russian servicemen not to believe what they read online about the war. He made the comment during a televised meeting with a group of women described as mothers of service personnel. He said nothing can be trusted on the internet. He praised the mothers for raising children who are fighting in Ukraine and said he shared their pain. Officials in the Democratic Republic of Congo say M23 rebels are continuing to fight and seize territory in the east. The ceasefire was meant to have begun on Friday evening. But on Thursday, the M23 said the ceasefire did not concern them because they were not present at the peace talks. China has reported its highest ever daily number of COVID infections, despite stringent measures designed to eliminate the virus. Nearly 33,000 cases were recorded on Thursday. That compares with just over 31,000 cases on Wednesday. Almost 3 years into the pandemic, China's zero COVID policy is still in place. Snap lockdowns, mass testing and travel restrictions are all continuing to cause disruption to daily life and the economy. An agreement has been reached at a global conservation summit to substantially reduce the trade in shark fins. It comes on the final day of the CITES summit in Panama. Environmental groups say tens of millions of sharks are killed every year for their fins. The market is estimated to be worth $500 million annually. A court in Hong Kong has found one of Asia's most senior Roman Catholic figures guilty of failing to register a fund to help people arrested during anti-government demonstrations 3 years ago. Cardinal Joseph Zen was fined more than $500. 5 others were similarly convicted. Martin Yip from BBC News Chinese reports now from Hong Kong.
Cardinal Zen is no stranger to this court building. Ever since the 2019 protests, he's come to show his support for activists put on trial. Today, he became one of them. On trial next to him are Hong Kong's well-known pro-democracy figures. The Cardinal thanked people for their support and concern, but he asked the press in particular not to tie this case to Hong Kong's religious freedom.
I don't want to put too much emphasis on my religious identity. As an older Hong Kong citizen, I'm very supportive of humanitarian aid. Of course, I hope that Hong Kong will continue to enjoy religious freedom as it has in the past.
The 612 Humanitarian Fund was set up in July 2019, just weeks after the anti-government protests turned large, with Cardinal Zen and other defendants appointed as trustees. It's aimed to help activists pay their legal and medical expenses. Millions in Hong Kong dollars have since been raised, but the pro-Beijing press accused the fund of collusion with foreign forces to threaten China. In 2020, Beijing imposed the draconian national security law on Hong Kong, and the fund shut down in August last year. But despite that, a magistrate ruled that they should have registered the fund with the police. Cardinal Zen has been a long-time critic of China, especially on religious freedom. He received strong support among liberal Christians in Hong Kong, but was booed by those supporting the institution. These are comments he made almost a decade ago.
If a good relation means to always please them and do everything they ask, then we destroy the church. We are selling the church. We cannot do that.
The Vatican has expressed its concern over the arrest of the popular priest, but some in the church questioned if the Roman Catholic Church is muffling its voice in order to secure a closer relations with China. Martin Yip, BBC News, Hong Kong.
Local forces in northeast Syria have told the BBC they may have to abandon their operations against Islamic State militants if Turkey launches a fresh ground operation there. Turkey has attacked hundreds of Kurdish militia targets in the region in retaliation for a bombing in Istanbul. The SDF, a US-backed Kurdish militia, has denied any involvement in that bombing. Our Middle East correspondent Anna Foster reports.
Turkish retaliation means Kurdish devastation. Vital infrastructure, like these gas storage tanks, has been destroyed. At least 30 civilians have been killed during days of airstrikes.
I was sitting in front of my house when I heard a loud explosion. I saw smoke billowing from the oil field. 30 minutes later, I heard a loud boom next to the site of the first explosion.
Turkey says Operation Claw Sword hit nearly 500 terrorist targets across northeast Syria in response to this. 6 people died when a bomb exploded on Istanbul's busiest shopping street nearly 2 weeks ago. Ankara blamed the Kurdish separatist group the PKK, which denied responsibility. President Erdogan vowed there would be consequences, promising to be tough on terror just 6 months before crucial national elections.
Our ongoing operations with planes, artillery and combat drones are only the beginning. From Hatay to Hakkari, our determination is stronger than ever to close all of our southern borders with a security corridor that will make attacking our country impossible.
The biggest threat is a fresh ground operation into northern Syria, and that would have serious repercussions. Syrian Kurdish forces say their resources are already so stretched that they've halted work with the US-led coalition fighting against the Islamic State group. They're also still guarding secure compounds, holding tens of thousands of women who joined the group and their children.
That's the BBC's Anna Foster reporting there. In South Africa, there's been an alarming increase in the number of deadly attacks by pit bull dogs. Children are often the victims and some have lost their lives. It's led to calls for the breed to be banned across the country, as Vumani Mkhize reports.
This is Keketso Saule. He was just 3 years old. Keketso was viciously attacked by 2 pit bulls while playing with friends in the neighbor's yard. His family is still traumatized by what they saw.
Had someone not pulled him away, the dogs would have finished him. They beat him so bad, you can't even see his face properly. On the one side, you can't see his face.
As I'm told, the dogs stayed in that cage and they caught the child and they were able to drag the child to this particular area where frantic members of the community tried to in some way separate the dogs from the child, and unfortunately they were unsuccessful in doing so while the child was still alive. And as you can see over here, community members are still quite angry. Tensions are running very, very high at the moment. People here want the owner of the dog to be accountable for what they did.
Many other owners around the country have voluntarily surrendered their pit bulls to the SPCA.
We accept every single animal that has been surrendered to us. And euthanasia is a reality. Over and above this, we do not rehome aggressive and dangerous animals.
The rise in pit bull attacks has prompted an online petition calling for a complete ban of pit bulls in the country. The Pit Bull Federation, however, is against banning the breed.
Banning the breed will just mean that people, especially in South Africa, who want to feel safe, will move from this, that they've made aggressive, to another breed. And so we will see maybe a drop in pit bull maulings, but then we'll see an increase in, say, Rottweiler or German Shepherd maulings.
39 countries around the world have banned or have some form of restrictions against pit bulls. And if attacks against children continue, anti-pit bull campaigners are confident South Africa will be the latest country to be on that list. For Maryam, BBC News, Johannesburg.
Agatha Christie's murder mystery play, The Mousetrap, celebrated an incredible 70 years in London's West End tonight. It's the longest-running theatre production, first breaking records in 1957 when it was just 5 years old. Well, the show is now off to Broadway for the very first time. Our entertainment correspondent David Silito has the story.
Good afternoon. Welcome to today's performance of The Mousetrap.
Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap. And today's performance, number 28,915, a special anniversary reunion for former cast members. This is more than a play. It's a must-see on the London tourist trail.
They got out their map and everything, and they were saying, what shall we do? We must see Buckingham Palace, we must see the Tower of London, we must see the Mousetrap. And I just thought, there you are.
Backstage, little has changed. This, the wind machine.
This is an original from 1952.
The original from 1952, the original production.
And to make it really wintry, actors step into the snow room. But what makes it remarkable is the history. It was setting records even in the 50s.
Do you think it's the best play you've written? I don't know. Other people seem to at any rate.
And since then, it's been a fixture on the West End, with one veteran involved from day one, Agatha Christie's grandson.
It's a very important moment, but one thing I will tell you about this anniversary, it will not be the last.
And to mark the landmark, there's going to be a second Mousetrap on Broadway.
Each summer we have thousands of American tourists coming to the show during the summer season. And I think it's time we got on the front foot and took it there.
And part of the mystique of this is there's never been a film of it. There are film rights, but they came with a clause. They had to wait until the London production closed. 70 years on, they're still waiting. David Silito, BBC News in London's West End.
I must admit, I've not watched it myself. I might have to catch it quite soon. I'm Maryam Moshiri. Thank you so much for watching World News America. Stay with us on the BBC.
Hello.